All right, so hopefully you guys have all watched that intro on what is a MacGuffin. So let's talk about how we are taking on board the MacGuffin for your project and basically what this project is. So we're going to focus on why we're doing MacGuffins as a theme. What is a MacGuffin? Some types and examples of MacGuffins, methods and strategies for this project, and what your outcomes are going to be. So you heard Hitchcock say it in his own words, but basically a MacGuffin is a plot device, and it's an object that you use to drive the story. And that's what I'd like you guys to do for this project, is to basically drive a story from an object, whether tell a story around an object. Think about how objects, somebody can pick something up and reminisce about something and go, oh, this, your grandfather gave it to me on our second date. You know, it was a silly little thing I saw in a shop window and I fell in love with it. And it meant a lot to me that he got this for me. And therefore, everybody has an object that says something about them. Maybe it's something they wear. Maybe it's top secret security code that would, bring down Facebook and the World Wide Web if the wrong hands got it. Those little things are really important, how we tell stories, whether it's for a game, whether it's for an animation, whether it's in a photo. So how we photograph an object says something about the object's value and a story, or whether in a film it's the thing that's the murder weapon, it's, the thing that might drive the story forward. So it's a plot device because it's a thing, the story happens, but it might not ultimately be the message behind the story. Like, for example, in the film Parasite, the family receives this good fortune stone, and they think it's the sort of thing that's going to change their luck around, that they're no longer going to be poor, that their luck is going to change for the better because they've gotten the stone. And you start seeing the characters start to enact things and change things because of this. And it's sort of a way that sort of starts driving the story forward. So think about what this, basically, it's that thing the characters on the screen worry about, but the audience doesn't necessarily care about. You really don't care about that stone. Yeah. But it could also be something that you do care about. So there is a contradiction within the MacGuffin. So think about whether you're doing it that way. It's the ring from Lord of the Rings. You kind of do care about the ring. You kind of care about if it gets destroyed. It's the thing that you might have a more intrinsic value, something you might really care about, like money, for example. So think about that, and think about that, how you might want to use that as a story or in how you capture these objects. And think about the objects you have around you. So it's all about objects. This project is about looking at objects as the center of your project and developing a visual story and a narrative around them. Whether it's in a game, the thing you need to achieve, the thing you need to collect, the thing that marks going on to the next level, or means you can destroy more zombies quicker. It could be on little everyday things in our lives and how we resolve that in a new and intriguing way. Think about things that weren't a part of our lives, but now we have to think about all the time. Like, for example, a COVID test, like a positive COVID test, that means a lot. Yeah, all of a sudden you have to isolate and change your whole way of being. It's this little tiny strip of plastic, but it determines whether or not you can go to uni, go to that club, meet with your friends. That's an important thing now. That wasn't a thing a year ago. Yeah? So think about how those little things can affect and change the project. Think about how you capture the objects and materials and use them. Maybe you're using the objects in a weird, uncanny way, or you're telling the objects in a very straightforward way. And build your concept from the workshops you're doing. So on Thursday, like I said in the video about the timetable, there's going to be workshops about how to draw and how to capture objects, and that will hopefully help inform what objects you're using and how you're doing it. And look at how the artists in your specialism have worked with objects as well, because the object could be just the thing you animate with as well. Like, you could just animate the object, and how you animate that and capture the motion gives the object a new meaning. So consider these things when you're making your project. How do we present things in media? Yeah? How do they function in the context of a story, a narrative? How can we showcase these things? especially when showcasing that they have an importance to the work. How can we create an animation out of objects? Create life to stationary things? How can we create wonder in the mundane that makes you go, oh, even though it's just, a glove? Yeah? How can the objects we collect, the things we have around us, represent us and shape us? What does our stuff say about us? What's that thing you'd run into your house to get if your house is on fire? And what does that say about you? And what ways can we use objects to create an identity or a thing? How do we build our identity and who we are around the things we have? It sounds materialistic, and it's okay to explore materialism for this project, yeah? How can we combine different objects together and change the context? Can the object itself be grotesque, even though it's something that's mundane and everyday? How does the framing, the composition, the lighting create emphasis and intrigue and tell a story about a thing? The thing itself could be a collection of lots and lots of things. Look at Eric Kessel's work over there on the right. He's created an installation out of all the objects that were posted onto Instagram in one day, and look at that. I mean, look at all of those photos. The single act of having a photo becomes the piece. There's some themes that you guys can explore, and I'll go over these themes that you might want to take into. You don't have to use all of the themes, but they're worth considering when you're thinking about your project. So we've talked about MacGuffins, but we'll also explore the Deus Ex Machina, materialism, and consumerism, and those are all things that you can work into the outcome for this week. So MacGuffin, like you saw in the video, is something that becomes unimportant, yeah? It's, drives the plot into characters' action. Whereas the Deus Ex Machinas save the plot from what seems like a hopeless situation. It's the thing that can do anything, and all of a sudden everything's resolved. So, for example, in Shaun of the Dead, yeah? Everything looks really bleak. The zombies are all around them, and all of a sudden the army comes in, and everything's resolved. Yeah, it's the quick fix for you script writers out there who've written yourself into a hole. The Deus Ex Machina is the thing that all of a sudden does everything. It's the person that, has all of the superpowers. It's the sonic screwdriver in Doctor Who. Like, can you actually think of all of the functions the sonic screwdriver does? It's the thing that the script writers can make it do anything. So therefore, it's Deus Ex Machina. It's an easy way out of a difficult situation. Most audience might find this construct a cheat or unbelievable or too easy to escape from, so be careful about it. But for a game or something like that, it could be an Easter egg that helps the player instantly achieve something or get something that's desired for leveling up, or a unique thing that drives, think about the unique Pokemon that's only available in one area if you stand on your toe and scan the right thing, or the limited edition thing for Animal Crossing that has a short window of time that makes people play and get involved. It could be a powerful weapon, and particularly sort of developing your project, and worth considering. You guys could also explore materialism. So, materialism isn't exactly a MacGuffin, but I think it's worth exploring, particularly for the photo and film students. You might want to work this in. But it's how objects focus and tell a message. Something particularly photography students might want to use. It's a preoccupation or emphasis on material objects with disinterest or rejection of spiritual, intellectual, or cultural values. So it's the idea that it's the $3,000 handbag that all of a sudden gives you a more intrinsic worth because you have this handbag. Pop art uses materialism to point out the sameness in mass production. So you may feel really unique because you have that $3,000 handbag, but at the same time, the company made more of them. More people will have that $3,000 handbag. It's the common objects of our affluent society that, taken out of context and scrutinized, kind of look insane. It's the idea that, a phone costs £1,000, but at the end of the day, you're probably staring at it through a cracked screen. It's, it it's the idea that you can be critical of the world you live in for this project and the things that you see that you might take aim to. It's the idea that people put value into things that, you know, as a status, as a way of making them seem better. You can also consider looking at immaterialism. So basically the opposite things, like the philosophical theory that material things have no reality except as perceptions, that nothing really is worth anything in the end. You're not taking anything with you after you leave this earthly plane. So why does it matter? And that's the opposite, and you can explore that as well. Materialism versus consumerism. Now, materialism is more like an individual characteristic. You can be materialistic. You can be all about these things. While consumerism is the overall characterization of the mode of acquisition in a modern consumer society, built around the imagery of product, advertisements, celebrity cults, people, influencers, yeah, promoting products or hair gel or face cream or things that clean windows better, yeah? It's built around the imagery of product advertisements, celebrity cults, and everyday consumption practices. Consumerism in art is inherently rooted in the present social context. So it's how we are driven to spend. It's the idea of needing to keep up with the Joneses, aka trying to have the things that your friends and peers have to look like you're part of that social circle. And people use it in pop art to kind of point out the sort of absurdity of who we are as a society. There's artists like Rosenquist, Lichtenstein, and Warhol, who are all pop artists that kind of take a spin on sort of how labels and labeling and advertising is used, and they turn that into the context of their own art. So that might be something you want to explore, like taking advertisements and maybe animating that, or taking elements from that and putting that into your photography. Look at the marketing materials and messages that sort of influence us and how they might influence your work. On the right-hand side here, we've got an image from Gursky. I used his work as well for the last one. It's a really, really famous image. It's a manipulated image. It's an image of consumerism. It's an image of materialism. Look at all of those candy bars, for example. Insane, right? The amount of choice we have is consumerism. The amount of things just to have things, needing to have that candy bar, needing to go to that shop to buy that thing. Good example is things like fast fashion. Yeah, you could look at sort of themes of how we are destroying our planet. So if you want to explore themes of sort of environmental sort of impact of materialism, look into that as well. So basically I'll go through in a second and I'll break these into separate videos for the photo students, the animation students, and the work that I'd like you to look at. Come on. And the game students, so I'll save those as separate videos. But everyone, it's important. January 26th is the UCAS deadline. So if you are applying to UCAS, please contact me so I can get your reference done. And if you want feedback and you haven't had it yet, please reach out to me. Keep up with your work and progress up to date on your Wix blog and in your sketchbook, and be ready to present that in 2 weeks' time on the Monday. Yeah. And work on the journal task, complete the artist research today. Don't forget to create a bibliography and source your research, especially if you are putting your research in your blogs. Write reflections for each of the first 2 weeks. Reflect on how the group feedback on the next Monday goes. And a final reflection of the group crit and project outcome. So that's what everyone needs to do for this project. And then there'll be separate videos for each one of the pathways, so you don't have to watch each one of those. So you just watch the one that you're interested in, or the two that you're interested in, and you can pick from there. And if you have any questions, of course, send us an email and we'll get back to you.